Hi, my name is Deanne Prins. Well, if I think back to the beginning of the pandemic, which was just over 2 years ago, I think back to what it was like as an educator in schools and how we, on a dime, had to change our entire reality of what it was to be with kids. If there's anybody who worked tirelessly during the pandemic, it was our educators in schools. They just rose to the occasion and they remained positive. They continued to love kids even through virtual screens, even while having kids at home. And it was really inspiring to see them just rise to the occasion as so many other professions had to do. In a challenging time, a time that we had never gone through before, that they were just so positive and willing to do whatever it was they needed to do for our kids. You know, a big part of working with people is face-to-face interactions, and then suddenly we're all working in a digital world and a virtual world, and that's not normal for human relationships. So taking the time to talk to people face-to-face and talk to people on the phone as much as possible was really important. And if I think back to when we went back to being in school and having to be masked, which lots of people still are today, it's been really important to really try to maintain human relationships with people, to continue to be positive and care for each other in a school setting. It was really interesting. Today at work actually was the first time that teachers gathered a group of students to sing to prepare for a year-end celebration for a staff member who's retiring. And just having a group of children together singing joyfully in a gym, that was pretty amazing. And just to see staff come out of the gym today, just positive and elated and really feeling, as some of them said, that their buckets were filled just by hearing the joy of children singing again. Those are the types of things that we definitely took for granted during the pandemic. The human relationship piece of just being with people in a way that's normal, that was pretty much not fully eliminated, but when you put masks on the faces of children and then you separate them, that they're not allowed to play outside, it's completely outside the scope of what's normal for not only adults, but certainly for kids. So that was pretty awesome to have that happen today. When we first shut down, just on a personal level, I've gone through some mental health issues in the past with anxiety. And so if I think back to when we first shut down, it's actually easy for somebody with anxiety to stay at home and not maintain relationships with people. But also it can cause anxiety to increase as well. And so maintaining personal relationships and being intentional about maintaining those relationships professionally and personally is something really important that I need to continue to work on. But I also know that God calls us to be in relationship with each other. And so that's something that I've definitely learned, that I need to maintain that and continue with those relationships, because God calls us to that, but he also builds us and brings us closer to him in maintaining those relationships with other people. At some point in the last year, I started setting my alarm for 5:50, and I would get up and make myself a coffee, and I have a space in our living room for morning devotions. And I put a verse, and I think I put the verse on the sign in our living room at the beginning of the pandemic. And it's Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. And normally that's a sign that I would change, but I actually left it on that verse, and it's still on that verse today, because moving through the pandemic as a family and also in schools, I needed the constant reminder that God is going to be faithful every day, and I don't know what every day is going to bring, because so many things were changing so quickly all the time, especially in schools. that piece of me constantly connecting with God every day at the beginning of the day and being reminded of his promises and his word was really critical, but still is every day as things we're trying to get back to a new normal, but it's still not a new normal. And I don't think things are going to be exactly the same again, whatever that's going to look like, but knowing that God is going to continue to be faithful. So I know what it was like for educators, but I also know what it was like for my kids. Having to learn virtually suddenly, it's not something that's normal for kids. I would get up as an adult and do my morning routine working from home, but having teenagers in the house and seeing them have to get up and go onto a Chromebook to do their learning, that was not something that was normal. And that was really hard for all of us to continue with that daily grind and to try to encourage them to continue with that learning when it wasn't really normal learning at all. That's not how we're wired as humans to grow and develop. And so that certainly was something that was really hard for our family. I think just knowing that it was an unprecedented time, and I know we've heard that term over and over again, but knowing that God has been and always has been faithful, we just went through a time that our generation has never seen anything like that. We've never gone through a wartime or anything as trying as that. And so just trusting that generations before us have gone through things that are much, much worse, and knowing that God was going to continue to be faithful, whatever that looked like for our family and the people that I worked with. If I think about a work environment, and sometimes we can get caught up in the work and the things we're having to be doing, but really at the end of the day, it's are we loving people like Jesus loves people, and that the people around me are all children of God as I am. And so just loving people even when it's hard to is something that I want to continue to do on a daily basis.